does everything really change? What about humanity? What about the power of words? What about us? What about us in these days? Is it still human to human, or is it just machine? Do we think about what really changed? And I'm really, really glad to have a very great panel right now, talking about the power of words, that we are all human. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big welcome to a lady who loves the color blue. Please welcome Claudia Edelman, Special Advisor of the United Nations. But there's more to come, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome her participant. Please welcome. Give a big hand to Kwaku Mandela. He's a producer for Mandela's Children and Dreamland. Come on.
Do this. We're delighted to be here. I'm Claudia Romo Edelman, and I am the founder of the WeAreAllHuman Foundation. After 20 years of working at the UN, I realized the most important thing that I can do for the rest of my life is to make sure that we use the power of media to remind each other that we belong to the same human family. And today, that's what we want to talk about. So, Kwaku Mandela. An activist. Both of us are activists, both of us are migrants. I think that both of us are for the first time in the Mexico, and we're delighted to see the great power that this community has. Both of us, I would say, are massively influenced by a man that has changed the world, Nelson Mandela, that happened to be your grandfather. So you're the grandson, and his wisdom probably influenced not only all of us here and everywhere in the world, but also you as a person, isn't it? I mean, like at the end of the day, you have been a film and a television producer since you were a kid, since you decided that you wanted to do that. But it was not always accepted. For example, in your family, your dad didn't accept that at first. And it was through the wisdom of your grandfather that you said it was dialogue, communicating, and finally understanding that allowed you to have now a relationship with your dad that accepts who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one. I come from a family where both my parents are traditional academics. They both have PhDs. My dad in nuclear physics, so he's always been about kind of traditional thinking around education. And I think I knew very early on that I wasn't going to follow that path. And I think that's always a hard thing to deal with. And so we had a strained relationship for a number of years while I was at film school, while I was in my kind of early 20s, while I was trying to establish myself in the film industry. But I think that's about doing anything that you're passionate about, is that often you're going to come up against barriers. I know my dad is extremely proud of me now, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that his friends and different people that he knows talk about my films, talk about what I've done, and he's now seen how much work goes into it as well.
And not only that, but probably he's very proud to see that you're taking what his dad told him about, like the power of words, to change humanity and to bring us to a narrative of understanding, of dialogue, of change. So why don't we start by showing a little clip of The Power of Films, a series that you started with Robert De Niro and Tribeca. So let's give it a go, The Power of Words. Or not.
Oh, the truth. The truth is that, well, I'm feeling a bit concerned that I'm in a white padded cell and I don't even know who's looking at me. It's a little bit disconcerting, wouldn't you think? The truth is, I feel alive, I feel wild, I feel crazy, I feel not quite here, not quite there, not quite anywhere. But it's okay, because it's the truth,
The truth is about being honest with yourself, with your friends, and with the whole community around you. And being truthful to the world, to be honest with your friends. And if you're not honest with your friends and stuff, you're not being who you can be. You're not being the best person that you can be.
The truth is.
The truth is.
Truth is.
We are not
yet
Free.
All the lies of the world on a multi-dimensional graph. They will all intersect at one point. That point would be the truth.
The truth is something that cannot be described in human language, human expression, or human communication.
I'm a writer, and writing is hard and scary, but I feel like I have to do it because the truth is Black women need to write our way back into humanity.
به نام خدا حقیقت این است که دختران افغان خصوصا در ولایت هرات بسیار از اصلا آزادی زیاد ندارن و میگن که آزادی به دخترها داده شده، اصلا داده نشده.
I would love to have the right to protect my own body and blood in America today. I think our blood is the essence of our life, and I think that many people take it for granted.
I'm scared. So the truth is, I fear every day walking down the street.
I am so sick and tired of all of the violence that's going on within our communities today.
The world is in a very serious position with global warming, war, devastation.
Our food and water are poisoned continually.
Truth is, there are people still out there that judge you because of the color of your skin.
We are so far behind as far as becoming equal.
حقیقت این است. از به ظاهر آزاد بودن خسته ایم. حرف عمل می‌خوایم.
Humanity is slavery to this money. Scraps of paper with numbers printed on it. We've allowed it to go so far now, it's got to a ludicrous situation now where people die and starve every single day.
چی داریم دیگه؟ چیزی خوردنی خوراک مراب نداریم، تو چیزا دیگه مشکلی او داریم، مشکلی برق داریم که برق نداریم دیگه چی هست.
That's a very powerful glimpse. I wish that all of you would take the time to support and see the power of words that Kuweko Mandela did. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. My truth, when I saw this film, is that my truth is after traveling and working for humanitarian affairs, being Mexican, having been in so many different countries, in so many different settings, from Africa and Eritrea, looking at the girl that is a refugee from Somalia, and working at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where people are talking about poverty with champagne. At the end of the day, there's one fundamental truth, which is we all share the same fears and the same pains and the same desires to see our kids like smiling and having a better future than we have, and to have the lottery of birth all of a sudden interrupting that commonality of having a dream. It's something that I want to make sure that we all use our power to change. I want to start by setting the tone here and then just go straight into asking about what we can do. But at the end of the day, 50% of the people, according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, has disengaged from news. They are not consuming media anymore. 30% of that 50% is because they find it depressing and not representing who they are. And I think that's really wrong, because we have to tell them the world is making progress. If you would be a baby girl flying in the sky, there would be no better time for you to be born from the caves to today than today. The extreme poverty has halved over the last 20 years. 80% of the world has access to electricity. 85% of children around the world are vaccinated. We are making progress. So I understand that media is absolutely negative, but we have to change that narrative. We have to make sure, and not only the world is making progress, but consumers around the world, millennials, Gen Zs, are buying with their beliefs and are voting with their hearts. 57% of millennials around the world have said that they will work in an organization that they agree with in their values. Unilever is the third most wanted organization to be working on. 66% of Americans, millennials, have said that they will be buying from companies that have a heart. So let's actually start with that. The world is making progress, and there's a market out there for good news. People want to know who is making a difference and where do I engage. And so in your experience with what you're doing in the many different projects that you have, how are you using that to transmit the legacy of your grandfather and to change the landscape?
You know, I'm not really trying to transmit the legacy of my grandfather. I think I'm trying to be authentic to myself. I think that's what, if you look at millennial and Gen Z audiences now, that's what they really resonate with, something they can relate to, something that feels honest, that feels real, that feels truthful, that is not this kind of orchestrated or manufactured version of that. And so when you look at, you know, brands like Nike and what they've recently done with Colin Kaepernick, the reason I think so many people have resonated with that is because they're taking a stand. And we live in a world where all too often, whether it's our political leaders, whether it's companies, whether it's social media, no one knows what they're standing for.
Or we're not giving them, what you're doing is actually engaging youth by giving them also things that they can do, they can activate. How can they take action? Because the time of inconvenient truth is over. It is time for convenient solutions, and we just need to make sure that we know what to do and how to engage.
Sure, but it's different. You know, you ask a young kid in Mexico City, his experience is going to be totally different to a young kid in Rio de Janeiro and totally different to a young kid in Cologne. And so often it's not about giving them the tools, it's about hearing their voices, empowering them to let us know, you know, how is it that we can, you know, engage with their communities. They have the ideas way more than we do.
You're an activist. You're best known for the Bang Bang Club and many of the projects that you have done, but you're an activist that take it a notch higher. I mean, like, I just want to say that, you know, like, being in this world, you can do as much as you can, but you have actually taken to the level of injuring your shoulder in a charity boxing match where you were fighting against environmentalist Ben Bronfman in London, and that event, you took it to the physical level to raise awareness and funds against the elephant and rhino poaching. So how can we actually engage the community here in Mexico and care and use their power to change the narratives that we know are very, very also influenced by social media and technology today?
You know, I think everyone here inherently already has care within them. You know, they all have their passion points. They all have something that they believe in. I would say, you know, find out how you can engage in social impact that revolves around that. You know, media has become the biggest tool of storytelling. And now more than ever, we need really unique storytelling to kind of drive the world closer together, to make people more tolerant. You know, one of the things that I found was probably the greatest about, you know, the Truth Booth film that you saw a little bit earlier is, you know, we took it to these countries all around the world, Afghanistan, Ireland, all throughout the States. And hearing people, you know, kind of be in the space where they could just talk, you know, it was like them letting go and talking about their experiences or talking about the world they lived in or talking about, you know, their truths. What was beautiful was to see the commonality between them, you know. And I think that's, again, the power of medium, is to be able to connect someone who's here, you know, to someone who may be over here.
And we just have to emphasize that, because at the end of the day, it is true that words matter. And what you say and what you hear in the public discourse is increasingly divisive.
Sure.
And so at the end of the day, we just have to accept the fact that that is a problem that needs to actually be brought back to, okay, how are we going to engage in a dialogue that brings pros and cons, and people have the opportunity to dialogue without offending, and having a construction, like, issue of migration, for example, in Germany is huge. And we just need to have that opportunity and the platforms to dialogue as opposed to just to fear an issue based on, you know, like, based on personal experiences. So it is about busting bubbles. It is about using platforms and speaking up.
Right.
So how?
I didn't know if that was a question or not. So
Yes.
was that a question or was that a statement? I wasn't sure.
I was thinking of. No, but you have like
Yeah.
huge platforms. At the end of the day, what you're doing in all the platforms, the 3 production houses that you have, Global Citizen, as you know, like it is about speaking up and about providing the voices and the platforms.
They're each different, you know. A film company is not necessarily a platform for other people to provide their voices as much as it's a business that allows you to tell stories, and it can be something more. That's not how I set it out. Global Citizen is a platform that's about ending extreme poverty, as you said, you know, which has been halved in the last 20 years. And the way we do that is use some of the biggest pop stars in the world. You know, in December, we're going to have a big concert in South Africa, and we have everyone from Beyonce and Jay-Z through to Ed Sheeran. And what that does is it engages younger kids, younger generation, to take part in earning a ticket to the show. And they can't earn it by buying it, so they have to take actions. And that can be signing a petition, that can be calling your local representative, that can be tweeting or emailing, and every time they do that, they get points. And when they have enough points, they can enter a draw to win a pair of tickets. So it's gamifying the whole notion of how one can essentially take action on behalf of the world's poorest. And we've been lucky enough because, you know, we started this in 2012 in New York, that it's grown and, you know, it keeps getting bigger. And we brought it to Germany actually last year, to Hamburg during the G20, and had over 500,000 people take actions.
I do think that it is important to make sure that people here have either, you know, like platforms or have voices or have media. You and I produce content that tries actually to breach that, you know, like sense of humanity and produce understanding. So if you have a platform, you have to be supporting people that produce content that matters, that brings understanding, that build bridges and not walls. If you have a voice, use your voice, because if you realize that the discourse, the public discourse right now is way too divided. And I don't know whether you know people that are so extreme in your daily life. I don't. I know people that are pretty much normal. And if I read the newspaper or if I look at media, I don't know of those voices. It doesn't really resonate with normal human beings. So normal human beings that care about others should speak up. And if you have platforms, you should actually make sure that you provide voices and platforms. All of us have a role to play in making sure that these divisive languages, that this divisive narrative that is consuming who we are as humanity can be brought together. So it's time to start busting the bubbles. And let's talk a little bit about like what you and I have debated about, like the role of technology in creating bubbles and busting them. And I think that we have a healthy difference here. My big fear is that seeing social media, and I don't deny that people were not racist or discriminatory before, and that's absolutely correct if you look at history. And nevertheless, social media has provided a mask for people to be anonymous, and through that, just like say the worst things that can happen to them and come their guts out when it comes to, you know, like expressing their opinion. That has probably increased, particularly when you have poisoning rain coming from leaders that are like, you know, like is somehow divisive. I see it immediately in the videos that we have on UNICEF. Boom, there's a huge social media you know, like explosion of negativism. And the second part is technology itself, creating the algorithms that provide you with what you want to hear and only provide you with what you want to listen to, gives you a sense of that is the world. And then there is a sense of when you come out to the world and it's not only that you believe in, that you have been, you know, like fed with, then there's a sense of, wow, who is that other? And if we allow that sense of the otherness, then we're not going to be able to have a dialogue. We're not going to be able to have a comprehensive and a healthy range of views. And I think that it is very important to have, at least for me, social media and technology platforms and media being part of the change that I see is growing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think, look, there's always been ways, again, of the media kind of communicating their message. So take UNICEF, for that matter. You know, for a long time, UNICEF would only show you starving babies in Africa. And there was an uproar around that, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone said, what about the other aspects of Africa? Why is this the only aspect that you show? I think social media is going through a similar thing. Again, there are people that hide behind it, right, and use it to criticize others. I think that's a very small group of people. For the most part, it's a communication tool for all of us, right? And whether it's Snapchat, Twitter, those all play a role, huge role, in how we, interact with the world. So.
Great. Well, this is the time for us to start thanking.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time is over. I'm so sorry, but we'll take a baby can for Quicker Mandela and Claudia Edelman, ladies and gentlemen.